Good evening. Good evening. I put my charger on my laptop. Okay, let me make sure I'm public. Good evening. Happy Tuesday. All right, let me just make sure I'm live. Okay. All right, so I am live tonight with another topic. Um, Tonight, we're talking about 5 ways childhood trauma is affecting your adulthood, aka adulting. 5 ways childhood trauma is affecting your adulthood, or adulting is like what we like to call it. And I wanted to talk about this because I've been talking about um, different topics, but it goes along with this tonight. And I'm really excited. I don't want to say like anything trauma related is exciting, but I just want to continue to give you all information about what you may be, struggling with. Let's just say the real word. And you might catch a new revelation on symptoms that you may have been dealing with that you didn't know were stemmed within trauma, because you're not the only one waking up to this stuff. I am too. I have done some healing, much needed healing that I needed to strip away the past. And I'm excited to talk about this. So if I'm monotone, it's not because I'm not excited. It's 9 o'clock. So I've had a long day. So let's dive in. So the 5 ways childhood trauma impacts adults. And I'm going to go over the 5 ways first, and then we're going to get into the information because that's what you probably are looking for. So the first way that this childhood trauma impacts you is lack of self-worth. Lack of self-worth. And again, I'm going to be putting these in the comments. So you all will have these. So lack of self-worth. This could be from abuse or neglect. Now, lack of self-worth, I've struggled with this. I have, I always talk about how my dad was addicted to alcohol, not because of his family per se, but he had past struggles that he was dealing with. So that in return made him kind of neglect us as we were children. And that parents sometimes they don't know that they are neglecting their children. So I want to get that out the way, because yes, we can blame parents for certain things, but sometimes our parents are struggling with the same thing that we are struggling with, and that's called a cycle. And so a lot of people, they recognize that they're in a cycle of generational things when they look at information about trauma. They talk to someone about their trauma, they talk to someone about what they're going through. So this is informational purposes only. These are things that I went through in my past that I'm just trying to help other people bridge the gap. So if you need much deeper and thorough counseling or therapy, definitely go get you some. So lack of self-worth is number 1, and that could be rooted in abuse or neglect. Number 2, Struggles in relationships. So obviously we've all struggled within one or two relationships at least, at least, and it can influence authentic relationships. You can have lack of trust, and you could be insecure and have an attachment to people, and that stems from insecurity. So that's how most of children that grew up and now are adults are struggling within their relationships. They have an unhealthy attachment to people. So you, again, that goes back to the neglect. You may feel like you don't want people to leave you ever. So you have a unhealthy attachment. You're not good with letting people go. You always are codependent. And that could be from the neglect you felt or the rejection you felt when you were a child. And so that's number two. Let me type that in the comment section because I really want the people that watch the replay to get these points and maybe write them out. So, number three, negative health repercussions. So, that could be asthma, chronic headaches. You can lead to alcoholism. And the brain, what's going on with the brain is very vulnerable. So you could be vulnerable to addictions, and that's how they can destroy your life, because your brain is such in pain and going through processing all of the trauma that you had as a child. And so sometimes as adults, we attach ourselves to addictions, whether that's alcohol, like I said, it could be smoking, it could be a sex addiction, it could be shopping addiction. All of these things can stem from childhood trauma. So that's number three, negative health repercussions. And I'm obviously not giving you all of it because I will be on here like 4 hours. But like I said, if you need counseling, I really encourage you to go get some. If you don't want to go to counseling, like I always say, go to a community that you can express the things that you went through, and maybe the other, people can help you express your emotions, because sometimes when we have emotions and we're emotional, we don't know how to articulate ourselves. So we won't just walk up to someone and be like, hey, I have this problem. Like, especially with childhood trauma, you sometimes there's spots like you will not remember one time in your life, and then you'll remember another time in your life, and you can't remember everything. So you're not going to be that open with people, when you have childhood trauma that you haven't dealt with. So this is like a gradual, I'm going to give you like some coping mechanisms at the end, but I'm just bringing awareness to what symptoms you may be dealing with, because I dealt with them too. And what helped me was art, writing, being in community, healthy community, and counseling, and all of those things. So this is just the bridge to lead y'all to what you need. So number four, problems with cognitive abilities. So that's learning disabilities. So I'm going to tell you what I did. So in seventh grade, I moved from another state to another state, and it was a drastic, traumatic situation for me. So in middle school, I was struggling. I was struggling with learning. I went from an honor roll student to the other state. I was like failing. I was failing. So looking back, I was like, I was going through some type of trauma because, and especially, again, with my dad being an alcoholic, we went through so much in the other state that we left that just carried to the next state that we moved to. And so I didn't know how to tell this to my teachers. They just thought that I was like, basically dumb because I didn't try. I didn't put no effort into it. And looking back, it was because of the trauma. I didn't know what I was dealing with. I couldn't think. My lack of attention, like I didn't care about, class at all. And that was because of all of the issues. And so learning difficulties, memory deficits, poor attention span. That's a big one. Poor attention span. Even like now, I try to catch myself with the attention span because if I'm short with it, I'm like, okay, I need to like step away. And I'm a woman of faith. So I'm like, I need to go pray. I need to go write. I need to go do stuff because I'm not, something is going on within me. And so, oh, I didn't even know people were commenting. Hi. Yes, we talk about, yeah. And I know you went to school for this, so you definitely could come on one of my podcast episodes and talk about this in detail because people need to know. I'm surprised that people don't know, but this is why we're here. So yeah, Kenji, please get on and talk about it on your page. And mine's too. But challenges with planning and organizing. Challenges with planning and organizing. So you can have all of these problems with cognitive abilities. And let me just type this real quick. I want y'all to take away notes from this because this is very important for you to assess if you are going through this and how to cope with it afterwards. And I do have connections to therapists and psychologists. All right, so number 5, higher risk of mental health conditions. So that's another symptom of childhood trauma that's impacting your adulthood. So you can have anxiety. These are just a few: anxiety, depression, borderline personality disorder. And the bonus is communication issues. So you cannot articulate yourself within your relationship. So if someone's communicating with you and say, let's say you have a temper because you haven't dealt with it, you're not going to be able to speak thoroughly about what you're feeling or what is on your mind because it is affecting you. You might have all of the anxiety, depression, and all of that wrapped and jumbled in a ball, and then it's affecting you. So communication issues is a bonus as well. So you can look further into all the things that I went over just now and read more into it. And again, if you need to book a session with someone and you're recognizing that you have all of these signs, I would definitely recommend you speak with someone, a professional, about it, because it's going to just keep affecting you. All right, so now there is the interesting part of this is when you have childhood trauma, there's also a link to, and this is why we need to be looking out for our youth, like be advocates for our youth, because they could start doing these things early. And this is why we keep seeing people younger and younger and younger. And I know they used to do this when I was growing up, and they used to do this back in the day, but we're seeing younger kids come to like elementary school knowing what smoking is and smoking in the bathroom, unprotected sex, all of these things linked to that. And this is not just me saying this, this is actual like research. And I deal with kids within my art classes that wrestle with childhood trauma. So they come to class like, sometimes they act like adults, wounded adults. So we really got to get our hands on trying to bring solutions to our youth, because our youth are coming from broken homes more and more and more every single day. This is a huge problem now. We used to see more two-parent households. Now we're seeing blended families. We're seeing more of, single parent or grandmother or grandfather or single dad. So it's not that it's a bad thing, but it doesn't mean that the child is not going to recognize that something is missing. I mean, kudos to everybody that's doing it by themselves, but the child still may recognize that they're missing something because of the social aspect of being in a class with people that may have married parents, or being in a class with people that may have, just different lifestyles, and they're looking at their lifestyle and what they're growing up in, and they'll recognize that this is not healthy. So that social aspect of going to school and stuff really affects our youth, and they will start taking upon these things early to cope with the childhood trauma. So that was just a bonus, but um, all of the smoking, unprotected sex, everything that we do to cope with childhood trauma can be linked to a fragile foundation. There's that's just what life hands us sometimes, a fragile foundation. And it's not to play the blame game, but when you awaken to you wanting to deal with this, you wanting to heal from childhood trauma, you have to go through these and look at, okay, what am I lacking? Where, how did I grow up? What was going on in the household? What did I take on that was unhealthy, and what did I take on that was healthy? And most of the time we take on what was unhealthy and we execute it in our adulthood, and then we dealing with some cuckoo folks at work. And we're not coping with things correctly. So yes, this creates a fragile foundation, and again, our youth are exposed to this more because of the lack of family structure that's supposed to be strong. And I'm reading my notes because I put a whole sermon together. But yeah, we really need to stay on top of our youth. I just the amount of stuff that they're going through now. They have a bunch of information coming at them. They have TikTok, they have Snapchat. They aren't really hidden from the stuff that's going on in the world. So a lot of us need to step up and pour into them, but that's another live for another day. And let me make sure that I have, yes, I love that fragile foundation. Yes, yes, yes. Let me make sure I have all of them. Yeah, I do. Okay, so moving on. Now let's get to the good part, because I know y'all want to know how this affects you within your career path. So childhood trauma can affect you in your career path. How? The big one is self-doubt. You can have a lot of self-doubt, whether you're in the corporate world, whether you work retail, whether you work in your own business. It really doesn't matter. The way you feel or perceive the world, like through your lens, is self-doubt. So you don't think you're good enough. You don't think you're supposed to be there, which leads to the second one. Imposter syndrome is a huge one for people that have dealt with childhood trauma. You don't feel like you belong, or you feel like you're going to be found out. That's what imposter syndrome is. Like, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not supposed to have this position because people are going to find out that I'm not even smart. I'm not even supposed to be here. So you're really acting as if you're unworthy of your career. And also, how this plays a role in your finances is that you worship money. You could be one of those people that worship money. Now, the funny thing about this is that I see a lot of people on social media that are trying to help people that really, in a sense, contradict them. How do I put this? They talk about childhood trauma and they try to help people, especially like women coaches, women consultants, whatever the case may be. They try to help people with childhood trauma, but um, they worship money. So it's like they're not really helping the people heal from childhood trauma. They're just telling them that they could make a lot of money and this will do away with the trauma. Money never solves trauma. If anything, money makes trauma worse. It magnifies it. It magnifies the wounds that you still have. It magnifies like how hurt you still are. So if anything, money worship is a result of you not dealing with the childhood trauma. You also want money status. That could be stemming from childhood trauma, money status. So, you work yourself up to a certain point to prove to your environment that you got out, but that's not really solving the problem. And then on the flip side, avoidance of making money is also a result of childhood trauma. So you can avoid just showing up financially because you're still dealing with the childhood trauma. So these are just things I'm telling you that could be a revelation to you. Maybe you already know this, but just trying to be that bridge because we need to heal, y'all. Like it's almost 2024. We don't want to go into another year still dragging this. And another what I have written down as a bonus is impulse purchases to save your business, or just impulse purchases thinking that you're going to make the money back. That's a big no-no as an entrepreneur. I've been there before where I just was like, I need to do all this stuff. I need to get all these things. And I never executed it. And all I did was waste money. I mean, there were times when that little small voice was like, take that back to the store. You don't need to do that. And what I did, I acted upon the residue of the childhood trauma that I still had. So the impulse purchases, that stems from childhood trauma. Sometimes, this is not everybody, but sometimes it does. Gambling as well. That's another sign that you have not dealt with childhood trauma. You could be gambling your money away. So those are just little tips or tidbits I wanted to throw in. And I went over the self-doubt and imposter syndrome. That's how it affects your career path. So if you are an entrepreneur and you have childhood trauma still, you undercharge and you would rather give away your services or product for free. That's a big one. If you are an entrepreneur or you have a side hustle and you just want to give your stuff away for free, you might have some residue of childhood trauma, because what we try to do when we still have this trauma, we try to please. Yesterday, I talked about people pleasing, overextending ourselves, being that strong friend. This kind of ties into that, because if we grew up with rejection, we grew up with neglect, we grew up with abuse, we just want to please people. We just want them to be happy with us. So if we start a business, we might be flooded with those toxic thoughts like, nobody's going to buy from me. They're going to reject me. They're not going to love what I do if I don't sell it for $1. And meaning you really need to like pay a bill that's 100, but you're undercharging and you're saying, well, I'll give it to you for 12. And then I'll throw another product in there for you too. That's not really healthy. That's not healthy. You're thinking from the trauma that you grew up, like most of the time childhood trauma has the toxic money habits too, because your parents might have abused um money or something like that, and you just remember those toxic habits and you bring that into your adulthood. That's what I did. I mean, my parents wasn't bad, but some of the things that I had to, grow up through with them really affected me. And that was a big I wanted to make sure I gave y'all that, because undercharging is a form of having childhood trauma, because you want to still please them. So it all depends on your situation of what you came through. But I'm gonna move on. So how you cope? um if you are helping children that are currently going through childhood trauma, you want to make sure that you use creativity with them, such as, of course, art. That could be painting, drawing, color pencils. Um, have them make a picture off the top of their head. Most of the time, you're going to be able to assess what they're going through, because either the picture is going to be really dark, like, drawing demons and stuff, or it's going to be like a family picture, and you want to pay attention to how they draw each person in their family. So they might draw one person bigger than the other, they might draw themselves like small, small, small. You want to pay attention to all those things, because it will kind of tell you the family dynamic. You want to have them do like a writing activity. That's the way to go to figure out what a child is going through. And then adults can do this too. Adults can seek counseling. Adults can get out in their community. A good way to also cope with childhood trauma is volunteering, like giving back. You may have never heard of that, but it does really help you stay focused on not hating the world. Like, you really just want to get in those volunteering opportunities to give back, and that will soften your heart as well. You want to step into your purpose. So there's a bunch of people talking about purpose right now, but in a kindergarten term, how I could break that down is, what are you interested in? What are you interested in that will solve a problem in the world? So you could be interested in history. Let's say I like history. So I read all these things about history. I got all these history books, and you could create a workshop for the kids in your community to learn history. That could be something that's in your purpose. Then other things, like you want to help people heal from childhood trauma. You can create a workshop um, with what I just told you, for children that to use their creativity. They have a poetry night for adults. These are all things that I used to do. I used to have art shows. I used to do all the things that I would want to help people with within my purpose. So they try to make the purpose like a huge mystical, thing, but honestly, it's just what you are called to do. What you are called to do. And it's not about you per se, it's about serving others. So serving others is a big way to cope with this childhood trauma. Now, you don't want to overextend yourself and operate from a wounded place. You just want to do the activities that serve the world in a better way. Now, the fifth one is create new habits to construct a new life. So we're not necessarily creating a new life, we are creating new habits. So if you didn't used to read books, read some books. If you didn't used to do your laundry every week, do your laundry every week. Like, start making those small changes and create those small habits. And before you know it, your life is a totally different in a totally different place. And again, seek counseling, Seek counseling. Seek counseling. Because you can't get off here and say that I never told you that, because I did. But if you don't want to do that first, definitely get out in your community and see what safe places that they have for you. If you are dealing with this, because childhood trauma is really connected to a lot of things. Y'all will be surprised at some of the ways that you showed up in the world was connected to your childhood. Self-doubt and imposter syndrome was a big thing for me, especially when you grow up, add the church to your childhood, that traumatizes you too. But that's another life for another day. But it really, really didn't help my childhood trauma being in a church with people that were also not healed, but it was like faulty foundation. So you want to find a church if you are a person that believes in God and you want to really truly follow him, find a healthy church. Like, don't just put up with people that have these familiar um things that you went through in your childhood. You don't have to put up with that. That's not what God wants for you. He wants you to be healed. He wants you to be whole. So if you find a healthy church and they are safe and you can really communicate with people that has overcome this, that's the key word, overcome, not going through. Overcome. That will really help you overcome, because we overcome by our testimony. And if you find someone that testified and they have a testimony about this and they have overcome, they're going to really help you. So I am going to get off of here in a few minutes, but one thing I want to bring up as well, the lasting impact of childhood trauma can be loss of self, guilt, and shame. The lasting impact of childhood trauma can be loss of self. So if you feel like you have lost yourself, go back to your childhood and figure out what you lost along the way. Because there's you're gonna put the pieces of the puzzle together. Guilt, that's a big one. That last, and then shame. So shame, um, I don't think people realize how much they're walking around with shame. It's not something that you're gonna be obvious, like it's not always obvious when you're walking around with shame. So it's like a painful feeling of humiliation or distress caused by consciousness of wrong or foolish behavior. So you could be walking around with shame from something that happened in your childhood, and you could still be wearing it like clothes. So you could be wearing it like a coat in every environment that you go into, and you will automatically think these people are looking at you from what you did in your past. You want to break that off your life. Do you recommend Christian counseling over secular? Should someone experiencing childhood trauma see a specialist trained in that versus a pastor? Yes, I think if you are a Christian, definitely find Christian based counseling. Use your discernment. I would say use your discernment first, because just because they say Christian counseling doesn't mean they're a good fit for you. But use your discernment, pray and ask God to bring to you the path that you need to get on the counseling, get in the counseling. And then I would not recommend going to a pastor first. I wouldn't, unless they have someone that they know that specializes in that. There's a blurred line when it comes to pastoring and counseling. Pastors can counsel, but when it comes to something specific like this, I would get a trained specialist that specializes in childhood trauma, or if you were sexually assaulted, abuse, all those things, like I would go to counseling. Because sometimes pastors don't have time to counsel people, and it depends on what church you go to. If they have counselors there at the church, definitely look into that. But I wouldn't recommend going to a pastor first. I would definitely seek out professional, specific counseling. And then if it's Christian, that's a great bonus, but definitely still use your discernment because, again, just because people are saying they're Christian out in these streets doesn't mean that they will treat you like that. And you just don't want to have any trauma with trying to find a counselor. Because that's the worst. Having a, like, I've heard people's stories about having trauma from finding a counselor. It's not good. Not good. Um, so yeah, I hope that helps. But the shame, I'm telling y'all want to break that off of your life because you might not even be aware that you're walking around with shame from the decisions that you made. And some of those decisions you made as a child. When we're a child, we don't know what we're doing. I mean, I look back, I'm like, I really thought I was grown then, and I wasn't. What is your opinion on psychiatric medicine? That depends. I mean, I know people that take certain medications. It doesn't make them a bad person, or I don't think God, hates them for doing that. But it's when people abuse those type of medications and they're not really, um, responsible with them. That's when you probably cross the boundaries with God. But I don't know. It all depends on everyone's situation. Even a Christian counselor might recommend you go on medication. I'm not sure, but I don't really have, a hardcore like no, yes, because everybody's situation is different. And just, I always encourage people not to beat themselves up about those type of things because again, that will go back to the shame. A lot of people are shameful about being on medication. Like sometimes that's just where you're at for the time being. And it's not for you to walk around with that. And you don't have to share that with everybody either. I think we're living in a time where people think we have to share all these things that we have to do. We don't have to share that at all. We can't trust everybody because people are going to be people. So we could just take the medicine and go on our day. And you don't have to share that with nobody. It just could be between you and your counselor. Um, but yeah, definitely if you have any type of mental health conditions like anxiety, depression, all that, I would definitely seek counseling. And I just wanted to share this stuff because I don't think it's talked about enough. And like I said, this is not to blame parents because sometimes parents don't know what they're putting their children through. And if you have apologized as a parent, God, you have done what God wanted you to do. And if the child doesn't accept, adult children, they don't accept the apology, you just have to let them come around when they come around. Like that's all that you can do. You can't overextend yourself because you'll end up right back in the trauma, you know? So if you have any other questions, I can answer, but that's pretty much all I have for tonight. And this helped me as well because I'm like, I'm gonna go back to praying, what maybe I haven't overcome throughout this. Most of it I have, just because that's just where I'm at right now. I'm just trying to be a better person, but the impulse purchases and money worship and all of that, that is definitely something that I used to wrestle with. So if you are going through that, I feel you. Other than that, I am going to be, hopefully, God willing, I'll be back tomorrow. And I really hope that you enjoyed. I don't like saying enjoyed trauma talk, but I try to make it like bite size for people to understand what they're going through and find a community. I do have if you want to start journaling or writing, I do have journals on my website. They have nice artwork on there. And then I have blank journals, and I have a guided journal. Um, but if you want to start doing that, I would recommend that right away. Start journaling. Like I said yesterday, it doesn't have to be no journal prompt at first, because sometimes it's uncomfortable for people to journal. They don't know what they're journaling about, but you just want to do like a throw up draft. That's what I call it, a throw up draft. So anything that comes to your mind, you're just putting it on the paper. If you don't feel like going out today, you write that out. You dump all those negative, toxic thoughts on your paper. And then once you look at the paper, you'll be able to assess, like, okay, I'm really going through something. Because I'm not like all this mess on this paper. No. And you will also, another activity that you can do to find out where you're at is get some regular markers, crayons, color pencils, have a sketch pad, and just like draw, just freestyle, and see what colors you gravitate to. If you gravitate to like a yellow or anything bright, that doesn't necessarily mean, what I'm saying, don't take it as face value, but usually lighter colors you're not going to draw to when you're not feeling good, or when you're not in a good mood, or when you have that underlying trauma. You're going to go to the dark side. So you're going to probably use a lot of black. You're probably going to use a lot of like behind me, I use a lot of color. A lot. This is a lot for people. But I like color because I love vibrant colors now, especially in the space that I'm in now. But you might start off with just white and black. You might just start off with a blue. Blue usually calms you, but you won't, you as you grow and as you change, and you strip some of this stuff off of you, you're going to get more, even more creative. Sometimes creative block comes from childhood trauma, because as a child you might have a bad memory of trying to be creative. As a child, you might remember your parents fighting. You might remember y'all trying to like come together and do a project, and they start, hitting each other. Like these are real situations. And so you don't want to go back to that. So you stayed away from doing any type of creative projects. You stayed away from coloring or anything because of that bad memory. So all I suggest is you break through that and you just start doing it from a clean slate. And once you go along and you start writing out those thoughts, you start drawing, you start making those pictures, you will be able to express and get it out of you. Because yesterday I talked about this stuff staying stuck in your nervous system. And, I'm not professionally trained, y'all, but I just know a lot. I'm just telling you what I know. But this stuff stays stored in your nervous system. And just imagine you carrying this from glory to glory. Like you trying to move on in life, and this is all stored in your nervous system. A lot of people that also, this is another thing that just came to mind. When you have childhood trauma, you have a lot of paranoia. So you like always are like, like you don't trust your environments, you don't trust the people, like you're always looking over your shoulder. So that's another, just a bonus. But yeah, definitely get a journal. If you don't want to get one off my website, go get a composition notebook, go get something to start doing as a hobby. Always have hobbies. But I'm gonna get off of here now. So I hope this helps. Please share this with someone that you know. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. This will be loaded up on there. It's under Kristen Nicole Mann. I have my other videos that I've done this week and even before then that you can go watch. I have my podcast episode. So tomorrow is Wisdom Wednesday. I will be talking about the economy and money. Because I don't know if y'all know what is going on in this country, but there's a lot going on. So I am not going to be a financial scholar to you, but I'm going to keep you up to date with what's going on now. Because that's the name of my podcast, The Know or Never, aka The Now or Never. So either you know now or you never will. So I'll be talking about that, and I hope to see you all, Lord willing, tomorrow. But I hope this helped. Please, please share this with someone that you love, that may can share this with someone they love. And I hope you all have a good night. Talk to you later.